Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every Thursday, Mike Piwowarski from The Rundown and from Arms Room Radio. Mike, thanks for dropping by today, man.
Happy Thursday, Paul. How are you doing today? How's everybody at the Second Amendment Foundation?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Busy news day a little bit today. I got several stories I want to talk about, and we've got some ground to cover today, man. Let's start with this one. The Biden administration came out this morning, and they are suing the state of Missouri. Last year, I'm sure everybody's aware, Missouri passed a statewide Second Amendment Preservation Act and effectively became a statewide, what am I trying to say? A statewide sanctuary state, yep. Yes. And declared that any further federal gun laws are invalid in Missouri, and said that state and local law enforcement will not cooperate with federal law enforcement in these things. And the Biden administration today said, look, we're going to sue you because we can't monopolize the people now.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear. The things that you just said, that's what's alleged by the Biden administration and Attorney General Merrick Garland. They have said those items that that the supremacy clause of the Constitution preempts this law, that the people of Missouri are now saying they will ignore all laws, they will not work with any law enforcement, and that's just untrue. And Paul, all you have to do is dig as deep as the actual House Bill 85 itself to find out that everything that's being alleged by Merrick Garland, Department of Justice, the Brandon administration is not true. And I'll give you a couple of the quotes right here from their own, from the law in House Bill 85. It says, this act is the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Various declarations from the Missouri General Assembly regarding the U.S. Constitution and the scope of the federal government's authority. In addition, the act declares that the federal government's supremacy does not apply to federal laws that restrict or prohibit the manufacture, ownership, and use of firearms, accessories, or ammunition within the state, because such laws exceed the scope of the federal government's authority. So it's not saying we're ignoring the supremacy clause. It's saying we've looked at the supremacy clause. We see what the supremacy clause says. And the supremacy clause says, in short, Paul, you know this, that if there are no laws at the state level governing it, then the federal law will cover it. Well, guess what? The state of Missouri has laws covering it. So you can't tell me that the supremacy clause is being ignored. The whole point of the supremacy clause is if there are no laws, then the feds will cover it. Or if you have laws that cover it, we won't contradict it at the state level. Well, they're not contradicting the laws. We'll get into that in a moment. They're not contradicting the laws. They're saying we will not abide by any future illegal acts. In fact, here's exactly what they say in here, Paul. This is just, it's so basic. I can't believe that this even becomes a story because people are too ignorant to go look this up. They need you and I to help them, to get to the truth. But I guess that's what we're here for. And it says right here, It shall not be a violation of this act to provide aid to federal officials or in pursuit of a suspect when there is a demonstrable criminal nexus with another state or county and the suspect is not a citizen of the state or is not present in this state. Okay. It shall not be a violation of this act to aid federal prosecution for felony crimes involving a weapons violation against a person or for felony crimes involving a weapons violation and a controlled substance violation in such violation as Class A or B felony. Okay. If you're committing a crime with the firearm or as an individual committing the crime with the firearm, that's okay. The law doesn't apply to that. This law applies to the federal government comes down and says, all magazines above 10 rounds are illegal. All bump stocks are illegal. All black rifles are illegal. That's when this law goes into effect. For the feds to come in here and lie to you and the media and try and lie to you to say that they're telling the feds you can't come into our state and enforce any laws is an absolute bold-faced lie.
Well, and the story I'm reading off of is MSN, and what the feds are saying is, well, we can't go after violent criminals because of this. Well, Mike, unless I'm missing my guess, it is not against federal law to be violent. Every state law, every state has a law saying you can't be violent, but it's not against federal law to be violent. It's not against federal law to beat the tar out of somebody. It's not against federal law to rape somebody. It's against every state law to do that, but federal law has no jurisdiction there.
Yeah, and again, if let's say that Missouri got rid of those laws, those would still be, and we see this a lot when we deal with government officials, police officials. Let's say a state allows a cop to not be convicted of something that looks like it was clearly a crime. Well, then they could come in and do the civil rights violation. We saw that with the Rodney King trial. Remember the officers there were, for the most part, found not guilty, and then the feds came in and charged them with civil rights violations. Not a double jeopardy situation, because in the state they were charged with the crime of aggravated battery or aggravated assault, and then the feds charged them with civil rights violations. Does it stem from the same incident? Sure, it does. But you know what? That's how they get around the double jeopardy. They charge different crimes. Yeah.
Yeah. The way I see it is just the federal government is whining and crying because they can't come in and take control of the state police and the county sheriff's office by saying, "Me, big federal marshal, you do what I say. Here's my badge." Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is the feds doing the how dare you? We're the feds. Everything we say goes. And that's it. And again, you just have to look as far as the supremacy clause. It's clear in both directions how it works. And the feds, even in their opening remarks, their opening comments about this lawsuit, don't seem to understand how this. I think they get stuck on the word supremacy. We are supreme. You must do what we say. You must always do what we say. No. It says that the local states can't make a law that goes against the federal law. Or in the absence of a state law, the federal law will take precedent. It's that simple. Well, we don't have that here. That's not what we have. We have the state saying, if you make an unconstitutional law against firearms, we're not going to abide by it because it's unconstitutional.
And the federal government seems to be, and the Biden administration specifically, seems to be forgetting something called the 10th Amendment as well. Let me get this comment up here real quick. John over on the Facebook side says they want it both ways with supremacy states and cities for illegal aliens. Yes. Yeah, they do want it both ways. Just do it our way. Everything will be just fine. Just do it our way.
I wonder what would happen if we did that, if we went into their sanctuary illegal alien cities and gave everybody guns.
Crime would go down.
It's a sanctuary city. You can do what you want there, evidently.
Yeah. Well, and in Houston, this is several years ago. This is when I very first started what was then the Politics and Guns podcast. There was a program run by a young man, and I haven't heard about it in several years. What he was doing is he was going to young ladies who were single mothers, and he was basically giving them firearms, but as part of that, they had to go through some training. But in young women in at-risk neighborhoods, giving them firearms, giving them training, just because these were the people who were most at risk of being victims in their neighborhood. And a lot of times these were, let's face it, these were inexpensive firearms. They were a lot of times shotguns. They were not top of the line carry handguns, but they were what he could get donated to him. And I think about him that program every once in a while, but I've never been able to follow up and find out what happened with that program long term.
If you Googled "I support single moms," you could probably find out where he is.
Yeah, probably. I'll make it a point to do that after the show today. I just that's and I'll also make it a point to have Rob Morris help me follow up with that because that.
Where was that? Where'd you say that was?
Houston, Texas.
It does sound like a great program. I mean, like you said, you identify those that are subject to the threat or to becoming the victims again, and you do what you can. You offer that training, offer that firearm, and I bet you there was I don't know how it ended up, don't know how long ago it was, don't know any of those facts, but I bet you the first time it happened where somebody tried to rob or hurt one of those single mothers that now was prepared to defend himself with the Second Amendment and the training they had, I bet that whole attitude changed in that neighborhood as far as going after them.
Yeah, I would imagine. I want one more, and this one we're kind of going out of order as to what I put into what I sent you for stories. I want to talk about the one where Tennessee has got a new bill they're pushing for it. It's got one sponsor and one co-sponsor, so it doesn't look like it's going a lot of anywhere. But I think that's good because this, in my opinion, is a pro-gun bill that is a bad idea. They want to take enhanced carry permit holders in Tennessee and designate them as law enforcement officers. That, in my opinion, is a colossally bad idea. I say all the time on Polite Society podcast, I occasionally say it here, we as private citizens are not law enforcement officers, and we should not aspire to be so because that's not our role. We should not act like police officers, and for Tennessee to be making this move, concealed carry holders, police officers, near the two shall meet. Not good, my opinion.
Yeah, and I think reading deeper into this, and I was checking some of the stand your ground laws and some of the burdens of self-defense there. I think the reasons they did this has the ulterior motive. And I agree with you, Paul. Concealed weapons carriers, law enforcement, two totally different things, and one should not be confused for the other, or you shouldn't think that you're the other while you're out there carrying the firearm. But here's what I think's going on there. Now, in the state of Tennessee, they have castle doctrine. So if you're in your own home as a citizen, you can provide yourself with self-defense via firearm with no duty to retreat. They have this enhanced permit, which they have is a it's a way to be able to conceal carry and open carry. So you pay a couple bucks more. I think you get the 8 hours training, and I think they already were at 8 hours training, or maybe it was 4. But now that they're combining it, it's the 4 hour training from one and the other, so it's 8 hours total training. So at that point you can either open carry or conceal carry. Mm-hmm. Of course, by the way, once the open carry came up, with this whole, now that they're open carrying, and they've been open carrying for quite some time, it's going to be the Wild West. Don't forget, it's going to be the Wild West, is what they say there. So now you have, we know we have a castle doctrine. We have open carry, concealed carry, even though you have to pay for it. And I got to tell you, Paul, I'm in a state that doesn't have open carry, and I demand, just like you, I want to be able to get me a crew served weapon via Amazon and have it delivered tonight. That's how Second Amendment I am. Or I want to get it out of the vending machine. But yes, if I don't have that option, and my option is an 8 hour class and $100 permit, you know what? I may do it, because otherwise I can't do it at all. I might pay my tax and then go fight in court to get my tax refunded to me. But in the meantime, I want my rights to carry open or concealed, and so I might pay that fee. So, and the last part of this is the stand your ground. They have stand your ground. It never says stand your ground in their statutes, but most statutes don't. But it says they have the duty. There's no duty to retreat if they're someplace lawfully, and that's basically stand your ground. Mm-hmm. If you're standing where you are, not committing a crime, you have no duty to retreat. Here's what I think, Paul. Here's what I think this is, because in Tennessee, from what I have found, the burden of self-defense is on the permit holder, the firearm holder. So if I am committing if I am out with my firearm, I use my firearm for a defensive action, then the state wants me to prove to them it was self-defense. Okay? We ran this in Florida recently. Florida flip-flopped. In Florida, you used to have to, as the person who committed the defensive act, I defended myself, I had to prove it was self-defense. Whereas it should be, state has the burden to prove. All right. So now in Florida, Paul, it's the state. If I commit a stand your ground act, the state has to prove that I was committing an unlawful act. I don't have to prove I was committing self-defense. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
In Tennessee, it's the opposite. So the individual that commits the self-defense act has to prove it was self-defense rather than the state prove it was illegal. I think by them saying the enhanced carry permit makes them law enforcement officers means that if they have to commit an act of self-defense, they're covered under law enforcement statutes, and they don't have to prove self-defense. The state would have to prove the crime against them. I think this is their way of saying your burden of proof is wrong, and if you don't change it, we're going to pursue this avenue and get them all the rights of law enforcement officers and protection. We'll get them qualified immunity instead of proving self-defense.
Well, and one thing, as I was talking with another friend about this morning, one other thing it would do, this is one thing I would support, but I still don't, I'm going to go two avenues. One thing I think it would do that would be good would, that it would give anybody in Tennessee that has this enhanced permit, you'd be a part of LEOSA, which means your permit is now good everywhere in the nation. As a part of law enforcement, your permit is good everywhere because you're now law enforcement. The bad thing is, if you're going to act as law enforcement, you've got a whole lot. You think a Mag 40 class is something to go through? Buddy, that's nothing. You've got to learn about evidence. You've got to learn about the particulars behind arresting somebody. You've got to learn about a lot of different things that the concealed carry permit holder really doesn't need to know.
Listen, you're absolutely right. And just so people are aware, depending on where you are around the country, in a law enforcement class, it's 800 to 1,000 hours, sometimes even more than 1,000 hours of training, which, by the way, works out to, in contact hours, well over a bachelor's degree. So a law enforcement officer coming out has for them, they say, oh, well, they're uneducated and all that. Yeah, it's well over a bachelor's degree worth of contact hours. They also have, in that 800 to 1,000 hours, Paul, only 40 to 80, depending on where you are, is the firearms. So just to help you make your point, only less than 10% is the firearms training. The rest of it is the real what to do as a law enforcement officer.
I've said quite often before that compared to your normal police officer, I probably have 3 to 4 times the amount of handgun training that they have. And
sure you do.
I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. Now, for law training, they probably have 20 times more than I do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. For the most part in law enforcement, you get the people that do their 20, 25 years. They get their 40 to 80 hours in the academy. Then they do maybe 4 hours to 8 hours a year of recertifications, and once or twice a year, it might be 8 hours total. And that's it. Maybe they elect an instructor course, but that's about it. There's not a lot more firearms courses out there. You don't have the Mag 40, Mag 80 style classes. You don't get a lot of tactics classes. You get very specific things like, hostage negotiations and traffic control. And you don't get a lot with the firearms unless you go to a SWAT team or something like that. But those are 1% of the agency. Those that seek additional firearms training are probably less than 10% of the agency. So you're right on the money, Paul, where you say the baseline cop, the average cop, 40 to 80 hours to start the academy, and then maybe 8 hours a year for the rest of their life. That's it. The gun to them is no more the tool than a flashlight or the car is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me come back over to show notes, see what else we've got to talk about here today. The next one, again, this is a little bit out of order. I'm going to Arizona. I'm flying out at this time tomorrow. I will be in the air getting ready. I'll be about halfway between here and there. Arizona has a bill in those legislature. They're looking to eliminate sales tax on all firearms. That is a law whose time has come.
Yeah, that's an easy one. That's a gimme. I don't know why most states don't do that. I don't know why most Republicans that are looking for a couple of quick Second Amendment points don't go out there and do, all hunting, all firearms, all equipment like that is tax-free. I don't know why they don't do that.
Yeah, we had Rob Morse and I talked about a story earlier this week. Tennessee, speaking of a bad law they had out there, they had a good law. They've had for the past year they've had a tax holiday on all gun safes and gun locking mechanisms. They're looking at expanding that, and I praise that as if you're serious about gun safety equipment and you want to promote it, eliminate the tax on it, because let's face it, gun safes are not cheap items. Well, if you're a serious Second Amendment state and you want to promote more people being involved in the Second Amendment, eliminate the sales tax on firearms. You're going to get a boost in firearm sales.
I know this just from being in the business. The safe prices, Paul, have tripled in the last 10 years, doubled in the last 5 years. Your average safe now is going to run you well over $2,000 for a safe, not a cabinet, not an insulated cabinet, not a strong box. An actual real safe is going to run you over $2,000 now. It used to be $600-700. You can still go listen to a couple of the discount outlet stores. They got the $600 ones. That they're the ones made in China, and they last 45 seconds on a fire. But that's a huge chunk. You start adding 7, 8, 10% tax on $2,000. You're saving somebody $200-300. Guess what you said? Guess what? Like you said, that's enough to buy maybe starting another gun.
Well, absolutely. Or if not another gun, certainly some ammunition for it.
There you go.
Let me get this comment up here. What is that bill called? Banning firearms tax. Not sure what you're talking about there, man. That came from the YouTube side. Athlete Gamer. Not sure what you're.
I know it's like a tax relief. It's like a firearms tax relief act. I'm not sure what the name of it is. But that's it. Like you said, they do in Florida has, I think it's the fishing gear weekend for open fit for when fishing starts. I think Georgia has it also. But yeah, we've always said, get that easy one. Come on. The low-hanging fruit. Make it the firearms tax repeal for that hunting weekend when it starts.
Absolutely. And last story I want to come up with, and this good because we're coming up on the time we've got today. Last story I want to bring up today is that Washington has been working on this magazine restriction. They no longer want us to have standard capacity magazines. They want to limit us to these little bitty 10-round magazines. Well, even the Spokane County Sheriff now has come out and said, look, this isn't going to do any good. As a matter of fact, when this thing goes to court, because it's probably going to be ruled unconstitutional. If you've lost the sheriffs, you've lost.
Yeah, you have. And listen, except for the chief of maybe Seattle and Tacoma PDs, the rest of that whole area is run by the sheriffs there. Mm-hmm. County and Pierce County and everything over there. That's all run by the sheriffs. That whole state. So, listen, Washington State, I understand it's horrible for you. You're gonna have to go through this, but hey, you know what? Tell your governor and tell everybody else, pass that high capacity magazine law and let's make an arrest. Let's get this to the Supreme Court. They're ready for this. Let's do this. Let's do it.
Yeah, I know that my boss will if were this thing to go through, there will be a lawsuit, really quick.
He has probably got it ready to go with just the date and time and location to be filled in. It's probably already ready.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Washington does lie in the 10th Federal Circuit. So,
yeah.
Well,
again, that's good because that means it gets to the Supreme Court quicker.
There is that. We are coming up on the time we have, Mike. What's been going on over on the Rundown, dude?
Oh, listen, good stuff. We continue to try and bring you our little brand of back and forth justice, dealing with all things conservative issues. And then, on the on Arms Room Radio, which just like I said, a couple of guys sitting around talking about gun stuff. We have a blast. And you could join us on Rundown 5 p.m. daily Eastern and Arms Room Radio 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. You can listen to us. So come on out and join us and have a good time.
All right. Very cool. Well, everybody, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, that's going to wrap it up for this week for the Daily Bullet and the Weekly Bullet. There will not be a show tomorrow. There will not be a show Saturday because, at this time tomorrow, I will be in the air. I should be getting, in about an hour from now, tomorrow, I'll be landing in Phoenix. So, no show, but do please go. If you're watching on the OpsLens app, you're already handled. If you're not, get the OpsLens app because on Saturday I'll be broadcasting the rally from Phoenix, the Second Amendment rally, the annual one they do. I'll be broadcasting that live on the OpsLens app. Come join us on Saturday. I believe it's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mountain Time because I don't think they've switched yet. So 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday. We'll be broadcasting live from the Capitol steps in Phoenix. Come join us then. And thank you for watching. Come join us next week for more Daily Bullet. Thanks for watching, everybody.